let's talk about Wizard of the Pigeons by Megan Lindholm, who also writes as Robin Hobb. This is a short, 220 pages, less than that in fact, urban fantasy from the mid-80s, originally 1986. Early Lindholm Hobb book, standalone. It's quite important in the development of urban fantasy as well, so far as I understand. But it's a genre I like without being wholly expert on. But from what I've read, it's a fairly important one. And I think we had some chats. We read this in my Discord book group. We did chat about the way in which possibly you see urban fantasy created as a mirror of suburbanisation and then televisualisation of both the suburbs and the urbs. This interesting thing about the re-enchantment of the city at a time where actually the cities, American cities, were struggling seriously before the relative renaissance, inverted commas, of the 90s. But it's interesting. It's set in Seattle. You got the Space Needle on the front. It's about a guy who basically he is an amnesiac. It seems, doesn't know anything about his life, but he's a wizard. He works with other wizards in Seattle who are also weird people, unusual people, people who don't fit into society easily. And his particular magic is of knowing. That's the number one magic, is he knows things about people. And part of his duty as a wizard is to tell them. He has an insight, a capital K, knowing, and he has to tell them. And that's kind of the start and the setup, and then things begin to go wrong. Something seems to be attacking or preying upon him, and it endangers all the other wizards, at least, as well, apparently. Like, as in, it's something he has to face this existential threat down, or else the threat will expand or become worse or something. And I mean, part of the mystery is, what is that threat? What is its nature? Part of what's going on is about working out who Wizard is. He's called Wizard. By the way, one of his duties is to look after pigeons who are very loyal to him. He feeds the pigeons from a magical bag of popcorn. Who is he? That's another one of the mysteries. What's going on with him? And I guess another mystery or question is, how do the laws of magic work? It's soft magic in most respects, except there is an attempt to say, look, there are laws. There are laws set from without, perhaps laws set from within. It's not clear completely, but these laws at some level guide and guard magic and create conditions for magic. And I think I generally speaking very much enjoyed it. I think I had one significant criticism of it. It was significant, but on the whole, I think this is very successful. I think the length is an advantage to Hobb, who my experience with the four of the five Elderlings books I've read is she has a propensity to go long without it feeling to me like it's entirely pays off. And here there's very little of that. There is a section to riff on the Deep Space Nine meme. There's a section, Wizard Must Suffer, basically, where we see what happens also in Elderlings books by Robin Hobb, that there's a section where you have to see the difficulty that the main character is experiencing, and that is a slightly weaker section, but it doesn't really overstay its welcome. It works more or less. The characters, all the characters who spend any time on screen, that's particularly, there's many characters who have little cameos who are interesting, but Wizard, another magical person called Cassie, and a waitress called Linda, they are the main characters, and they work very well. They're all well developed, they're all sympathetic, they're all flawed and challenging and a challenge to read, and you've got to think about them. They highlight a lot of the stuff that people like about Hobbs' writing, I think, her character writing. I think actually her style here is generally better than in the Elderlings. People say the Elderlings books are beautiful. I actually thought there were better moments of description here, and I think the constraint of space and the constraint of the genre help Hobb there. I do think the mysteries were all satisfying, generally speaking. Kind of working out what's going on with Wizard, what this a malevolent spirit, as it says about what this malevolent spirit is, and how it interacts with magic, and how it interacts with Wizard, and how it interacts with the rest of the people, the rest of the magicians, the wizards in the city. I think is great. Seattle gets some pretty good moments of urban description. I could have lived for more actually, but there are moments, especially because obviously Lindholm has a fascination. I think by this point she's living in Tacoma, but she has a fascination with the city, and so do some of her characters. And we learn about the city, and we see it as a magical place, a re-enchanted place. And certainly a book that, I don't know if it's directly influenced by this, but a book that will resonate with that to a small degree is Neverwhere. Neverwhere pushes in that direction, goes into the, what if there was a secret, the secret world of the homeless magic people is actually literally a secret world. Here, it's not quite going there, but it's very enjoyable. You'll also, if you're into the sort of that sort of urban fantasy, this is closer to Rivers of London and Neverwhere than it is to Dresden. If you're thinking about the spectrum, than it's to Dresden, or say Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel, to the degree those are on the edge of urban fantasy. The plot, the mysteries work well, the description's good, the characters are good, the world building is solid. In a sense, you could do with more space there sometimes, just to know a bit more about the world. You think it's something where if this was a series of pulp length books, you'd find out a lot. It'd be a Dresden type thing, but oh great, we found out something new. But I think that is slightly lacking. That's not really where she wants to go with it. It's interesting. It's pretty clear that she wants to create this fantastic environment. And she wants to explore the characters within it, and she likes the magic. She's interested in the idea of magic and the enchanted city, but that's really a launching off point, and that both works and doesn't work at points. There are moments where that feels like, actually it's fine. She's almost helping invent a subgenre, but she herself is not playing with that so much. This is actually quite different to Gene Wolfe, who is similarly a very literary writer, but Wolfe loves the genres he's writing in the sense that but I'm not saying Lindholm doesn't, but he loves to actually play with them and do stuff with them. He actually is in a process of invention, and that's part of what he wants to do with his speculative fiction, as well as the weird philosophical stuff. I think Lindholm is to some degree interested in that, but really wants to use it as a device to tell a different kind of story. I think the biggest weakness, palpably the biggest weakness, and the weakness we picked up on most in the book group discussion, was the way in which it's not that it just ends. You get books where you feel like, I didn't realize that the book had ended. It's not so much that, but that the ending is quite sudden. Happens over a couple of, a chapter and an epilogue, pretty much. There's 16 chapters, put it this way. Chapter 14 is one of the strongest chapters of the entire book. It's exceptional, and it's some of maybe my favourite chapter of any Lindholm or Hobb book. It's really very good. And then 15 is essentially the resolution, and 16 is an epilogue, 2-page epilogue. And 14 develops a bunch of stuff, and you've also had some stuff developed over 13, 12, whatever the last few chapters before that, which, threads about the character, particularly about Wizard, about the threat he faces, and so on, and the situation he's got into, and which has been quite satisfying, seeing the kind of his troubles and his attempt to respond to them. And then 15 kind of wants to sum all this up in a fairly, it's not very short, but it's pretty short by world record standards. It's 20 pages? Yeah, 20 pages, 21 pages. And just suddenly everything's sorted. Everything is dealt with. But some stuff isn't. Some of the threads that come up, things that seem important about Wizard's character, not brought back, not resolved. The actual decisions about exact endings are potentially okay. I don't hate them, but they seem hurried. The actual sort of, if you like, the action of the scene. So basically, the falling, in that sense, the falling action is very weak. The action of the conclusion itself is not terrible, and what the falling action theoretically includes is interesting, but it's all quite hurried, and the falling action particularly is just like, boom, 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 here's some stuff. We're not going to deal with everything, it's over. And it's strange because it's a short book, so there's not a pressure to cut out 2 pages to deal with something else. I suspect it's that Lindholm is no longer interested in some of these questions that have been raised, or issues about the character that have been raised, and I suspect it's that she, basically has just got to the end of where she wants to write the story. She's not interested in dealing with that, and so she doesn't know how to, they call it the Myronese knot in a way. It's the classic situation where you create a problem in the writing that is either going to take a lot of effort to deal with, or you just don't deal with properly at all. And I wonder if that's what she felt. I don't know. That's speculative. I'm trying to offer a reason why I don't really need to. But it is because it's such a good, satisfying book that it's a frustrating element. I'd still say it's very good. I'd still recommend it. If you like Robin Hobb, you should read it, certainly. Partly it's short of nothing else. But if you don't like Robin Hobb, if you don't like the length of her books, I think this is not a bad place to find out lots of things that are good about her, that are strong about her character work, and the texture she creates through her prose. If you have read it, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. Till next time.